Hi, I'm Thomas the AxidentalDM, and today we're back with another solo adventure in the Call of Cthulhu world. This time we're going to be playing Alone Against the Tide, which was put out last year by Chaosium, and we're going to be playing it as one of the pre-generated characters that come along with this scenario. And so we will be playing Ellery Woods. And so just a little bit about Ellery Woods as we kind of get started about this scenario. He is a professor by occupation. He's about 40 years old, and he's a male. He's originally from Boston, but is now resident in Arkham, as he is a professor at Miskatonic University. We can see some of the stats then that are listed for him up on the screen, with a strength of 50, a con of 60, a size of 50, a dexterity of 60, an appearance of 40, education of 80. His int and an idea is 70. His POW is 50. He's got a movement rating of 7. His hit points is at 11 to start off, with a sanity of 50. And I did roll 3d6 and multiply it times 5 to figure out what our luck is going to be. And so we're going to be starting off with 60 luck if we're going to be needing it. He doesn't have any weapons with him as we get started, but who knows, he might find a few things along the way. A little bit in terms of the background for this particular character. It says, personal description: he is a white man with heavily tanned skin, dark hair, brown eyes, and a short, neatly trimmed beard. He wears a newsboy cap, which looks slightly at odds with his smartly tailored three-piece suit. He does believe fortune favors the prepared mind. And his significant people are his old friends from Boston, the old Boston 9 gang. He may have left his days of crime behind when he got his education, but he has never really leave a gang. Meaningful locations, of course, is his hometown of Boston. His treasured possession is the research manuscript he's been working on for over a year now, and he hopes it will win him academic acclaim. And so that's kind of the character we're going to be starting out with. And so the story begins sometime in the 1920s on a pier opposite of the lake resort town of Esbury, Massachusetts. And so from there we can just get right into it. Number 1. The sun sinks low on the horizon as you board the ferry headed across the lake to Esbury. As you set foot on the boat, the ferryman greets you with a wide smile and a cheery wave. He stands by the gangplank as you pass, welcoming the other passengers as he removes his cap to scratch at his balding head. His pudgy figure fills his well-worn suit. He looks a little awkward, but he seems a rather pleasant sort. Leaving the man behind you, you take a seat toward the prow, eyes fixed on your destination. Now we go to number 12. You settle into a seat with your thin briefcase resting on your lap, noticing that the rest of the passengers are likewise getting comfortable for the short trip across the lake. Glancing around you catch sight of the ferryman entering the cabin. As you sit patiently and wait for the engine to come to life, you listen to the sounds of idle chatter around you. You look out across the water and you notice a thin fog beginning to form over the surface of the water as the temperature drops with the approach of night. After a few minutes, you hear the engine sputter into action and feel the ferry lurch forward. The conversation around you continue as the ferryman joins you all on deck. You can't help overhearing most of the talk, though it's surprisingly banal. There are almost a dozen passengers on the ferry. Most of them are simply looking to spend their money during their weekend in Esbury and to enjoy the various shops and leisure activities the lakeside town has to offer. Many of the passengers seem to come from money, as is common in Esbury. You notice a strange look from one of the women in the group. She has a full figure and brown hair and eyes. She seems to be looking you over, admiring your features. The woman clearly sees something in you that she likes. Perhaps it's your looks or a glint of intelligence in your eyes. She gives you a sly wink before turning back to her companions. You likewise turn your attention to the rest of the passengers. Sitting apart from the general crowd are two men in dark, well-tailored suits, whispering quietly to each other. They have unamused expressions on their faces, as if they don't seem pleased to be here. Perhaps they're on business. Noticing that you're sitting alone, the ferryman approaches you and stands over you with his characteristic smile. You notice he's missing a tooth in the upper left corner of his mouth. His eyes are bright as they light upon you. "Good afternoon. You look a bit lonely there, friend. What brings you to Esbury?" And then because we're playing then one of the pre-generated characters, we're told to go to number 23. You mention the passing of a distant colleague in Esbury and how you've been sent by Miskatonic to recover his work and bring it back to the university. The man sighs and nods slowly. "You mean Professor Harris. Real shame what happened to him. Always seemed like such a nice man. Officer Powell says they're still cleaning up the mess at the professor's place, but some of the more valuable bits will probably be at the estate sale tonight if you're wanting at it. The man looks down at his hands for a moment and then back at you as he extends one your way. Anyways, I'm Lance Sanford. Pleased to meet you. But I wish it were under better circumstances, eh? So we're given several options then to choose from. We can either inquire about Professor Harris, to inquire about Officer Powell, to ask Lance Stanford about himself, to talk about the estate sale, or to pass the time waiting to arrive in Esbury. I think that Dr. Woods is a little bit on the chatty side, so he's going to want to talk about something. And so in that case, that leaves us then either asking about Powell or Harris or Lance Stanford himself or the estate sale. Considering he's here to get information or kind of recover the professor's work, I think it's going to be probably most apropos then to ask about the estate sale, because he wants to make sure that he wants to get the work and not have that just go into some idle hands. So for that, we go to number 66. The mention of an estate sale grabs your attention. You ask for some more information. Sanford obliges. Amelia Harris is selling some of her late husband's collection. She could use the money and doesn't really have an interest in that ancient Indian stuff the professor studied. But some folks do, collectors, academics, that sort of thing. She put the word out not long after her husband died. People have been trickling in for the past few days. If you're looking to get your hands on something, it's gonna go on tonight at the dance hall by the pier. You exchange a few more pleasantries with Sanford before he goes off to finish guiding the boat into port. You pass the time in casual conversation with other passengers and observing the scenery. You note the tall pines and the sloping hills along the lake shore around Esbury. These features and the small town beyond are just visible through the growing mist, but squinting helps make them out to your satisfaction. In time, you arrive at the pier at Esbury, grateful to be off the water. And now we go to number 3. You take your first steps onto the pier with the rest of the ferry passengers trying to get your legs once again. The passengers still chat casually as they walk off to their destinations. You note one last little flurry wink from the full-figured woman as she struts along confidently behind the women accompanying her, and you feel the 2 dark-suited men push past you at a brisk pace, nudging you out of their way. Sanford gives you one last wave and a smile as he begins tending to the old rust-stained boat that is his pride and joy. The last light of the sun is fading fast, and the fog is growing thick on the water now. The night is still young, but you would rather not be wandering around the dark and fog of a town you are unfamiliar with. Taking in your surroundings, you see a sizable crowd jockeying for entrance into a lavish, modern-looking building along the lakeside. The words, "Estate Sale Tonight," are written on it in large, bold letters. While this seems to be the main attraction, you could also seek out somewhere to stay for the night and set about your work in the morning. Well, considering he's here for the work and he's very much concerned that maybe something might go to a collector or another academic that's not associated with Miskatonic University, kind of giving a little extra prestige to another university, I think then he's definitely going to go to the estate sale because he wants to be there tonight to make sure that there's not going to be anything missing when he goes around searching for tomorrow. So we will look for lodgings later, and we will go to the estate sale now at number 15. Pushing through the crowd, you make your way towards the estate sale. Judging by the number of people packed into the dance hall, this seems to be quite the event. Most of the people here are well-dressed with conspicuous amounts of jewelry and designer clothing on display. You see a broad-shouldered man in a policeman's uniform standing by the door. He has a scarred yet clean-shaven face and a baton at his side. His brow is furrowed in a serious expression, and he watches the commotion through narrow eyes. I think our good doctor is going to be a little bit nervous. I mean, he does have some cash with him, a little bit more than I would kind of expect for someone at this time period to kind of be carrying around with him. But he's looking around and seeing that this might be a little pricey considering what might be around. So we'll just have to kind of keep an eye out on things. As you mingle with the assorted academics and collectors, you notice a few other faces that stand out in the crowd. Most immediately, you spot a man in flowing orange robes with tawny skin. He seems more than a little out of place and is garnering some odd looks from the other guests. Glancing around further, you happen to notice the 2 dark-suited gentlemen from earlier standing in a corner toward the front of the room, talking to a young, dark-haired man in a dated yet elegant long coat. He has a slight build and has rather sharp features. A thin wisp of a mustache hangs beneath his nose. Most notably, though, is the rather attractive young woman standing on the stage at the front of the room next to a bespectacled old man. Long black hair cascades down her shoulders, accentuating her pale features and complementing her formal black dress. Occasionally, she and the older gentleman peek at objects beneath white sheets, the sale items waiting to be displayed. Then our various options are to mingle with the crowd of guests, to speak to the officer at the back of the room, to approach the man in orange, to introduce yourself to the dark-suited men, to make your way toward the stage and the woman, or to leave the hall and go find a place to stay for the night. Again, I think that Dr. Woods' primary concern is about the artifacts, and that something that belongs to Miskatonic University might somehow get disappeared. And so he's definitely probably going to go towards the stage and the woman that is there just to kind of take a look. And so we go then to number 22. You make your way to the stage, navigating around the many guests in the dance hall. Your eyes lock firmly on the woman, and hers rise to meet yours as she looks up from peeking at one of the hidden objects. She stops what she's doing as you approach, and a smile appears on her lips as she notices that she's caught your eye. She rests her left hand on her hip as you come to stand at the foot of the stage. The old man behind her continues his inspections, either unaware or uncaring that you've come to distract them. The woman leans towards you over the edge of the stage. You can see her makeup has been painstakingly applied despite her status as a recent widow. You clear your throat as you meet her gaze and promptly introduce yourself. She extends her hands to you formally. "Well, aren't you a new face in town?" she teases. "We get those quite a bit here. No doubt you plan to bid on some of my late husband's things. Good for both of us, I say. Just be sure to give a good price for little old me, all right?" She winks slyly at you. You realize now would be a good time to get some more information from this woman, who might be the most well-informed regarding your interests. She certainly seems like the flirty sort and would probably respond well to more of the same. And so now we're asked then to make a charm roll. So let's see how well Dr. Woods is at charming newly widowed women. And he gets a 48. And his charm is, we'll take a quick look. His charm is a 15, so that is definitely not one of his skills, and that is a little bit too much to be spending luck at this point, so we have failed, and we will go to number 57. You manage a smile and stumble through a compliment, and the woman laughs. "Oh, well, aren't you the nervous sort? Don't know what to say to a pretty woman like me, eh? That's quite all right. I wouldn't have you anyway. You'd be welcome to stay for the sale, though. I might like you better as a buyer." She winks and turns around, walking back to her place on the stage. And so we now go to number 17. You have begun gathering information in Esbury. Would you like to interact some more? And so we're given then several options to choose from: to mingle with the guests, to speak to the officer at the back of the room, to approach the man in orange, to introduce yourselves to the dark-suited men, to make your way towards the stage and the woman. We've already done that one. Or to leave the hall and go find a place to stay. Okay, so we've made one choice, and according to the directions in this scenario, we are allowed to make 3 options from the list below. So we've decided then, we've tried to talk to at least the young widow. I think then the men in the dark suit kind of caught my eye, and so I'm going to go talk to them. So we go to number 60. You approach the huddled group and introduce yourself to them, stating that you recognize them from the ferry. The 2 men from earlier appear annoyed at your presence and are very irritable. "Scram, man, we don't know you. You got nothing to do with us." Third man seems likewise bothered and frowns at your intrusion. They certainly make you feel uncomfortable. Ignoring you in hopes that you'll leave, the 2 men in suits return their backs to you. You see the jacket of each suit shift oddly, as if it's ill-fitting. We're allowed to make a spot hidden roll to see if we can notice something. So let's find out. We roll then, and we're getting an 86, which I am 86% positive that's going to be a fail, but I will check anyway with 25%. So we go to 40. Okay, our good Dr. Woods is not doing all that well as we begin this scenario in his rolls. So you take the hint and decide to leave them be before they get truly angry. You turn your back to the crowd and search for another distraction. Now we have one final opportunity to kind of do something before then we have to then go to number 35. So I think it seems that there's something a little bit more afoot about the death of our good colleague, and so I might go talk to the officer at this point. So let's go to number 88. Even though the man dressed in orange with the bald head kind of intriguing, but I think Dr. Woods is a man to get down to business. So we'll go talk to the police officer instead. Go to number 88. You turn around and backtrack toward the entrance to the ballroom. Something about the officer by the door catches your attention and holds it. He gives off a commanding presence, and his eyes bore into you intensely as you make your way over to him. As you move within earshot, he rests his hand on his baton and clears his throat. I really hope there isn't going to be any sort of problem, citizen. I wouldn't want to see anyone getting hurt tonight. His hand does not move from his baton. That's odd behavior. But we are asked to make a psychology roll. Maybe, just maybe, we might get our first success of the night. And we roll a 33, which let's take a look at his psychology, which is at a 50%. So that is definitely a success, finally. So we'll go to number 105. For an officer of the law, Officer Powell possesses a rather thuggish disposition, I'd say. He seems to be looking for a fight, and from the scars on his face, you can tell he's been in many. With his size, he does cut a rather intimidating figure. Still, the use of thinly veiled threats as an introduction is somewhat unnerving, and certainly not proper behavior for a moral and ethical man. It's probably best not to provoke this man, and it would be wise to avoid him as much as possible. Okay, and then we're directed to go back to number 17, which is where we kind of had our options. And we've already done 3, and so at this point then, we are directed then to move on to number 35. The murmuring of the crowd dies down, and people begin to gather around the stage as Amelia and the older gentlemen call everyone to attention. The widow strides confidently to the front of the stage where the lights are centered. She flashes a broad smile and the crowd and begins to speak. Good evening, everyone. I'm so glad you all could make it tonight. As you all know, my husband recently passed away, and, well, at this point, Amelia begins to tear up theatrically, so much so that her makeup begins to smear. She produces a handkerchief to dry her eyes before continuing, well, I'm very upset. I miss my poor William very much, and I don't know what I'll do without him. And that's why I've brought you all here tonight. I hope you can find some use for his collection, and I know that he would be happy to see his things go to those who value them highly. I hope you'll show this poor widow a kindness by finding something you like. But now, let us begin. I'll leave the auctioning to Mr. Warren. With her opening statement complete, Amelia moves to stage left and allows the bespectacled old man, presumably Mr. Warren, to take center stage. He clears his throat before speaking. Tonight we have 6 very ancient and very valuable items for sale from the estate of Professor William Harris. Though exceedingly strange, I have deemed these items to be authentic to the best of my ability. I have placed a ballot box, slips of paper, and a pencil on each of the 6 tables, next to the items for sale. If you wish to bid on an item, simply write your name and the amount you are willing to pay for it on a slip, then place it in the box. The item will be sold to the highest bidder. All of the proceeds will go to the wife of the deceased. With that, Mr. Warren moves to reveal the gathered items, and we go now to number 70. Mr. Warren approaches the first table and removes the cloth covering to reveal an odd pair of clay cylinders covered with strange etchings. They are small and seem quite fragile, with large cracks running down their sides. Mr. Warren proceeds to the next table and likewise uncovers the items in question. This one is significantly larger and more ornate. It appears to be some sort of altar or reliquary heavily decorated with yellow-green gemstones. However, there is one similarity with the first item, the presence of the same strange written characters, though these ones seem to have been painted on. The old scholar turns to the next item in question and displays it for all to see, a decorated crown of solid bronze, wrought with the image of a Hindu god. The next item is certainly the most mundane, a large, thick, leather-bound journal that appears well worn and beaten, with several loose pages jammed between them. Mr. Warren senses the confusion of some members of the crowd and clarifies that the notebook is the assembled personal works and studies of Professor Harris. I think Dr. Woods is going to be interested in a lot of these things, but since he's there to kind of get the research of the deceased professor, this is probably what he's going to be most interested in. The item that follows the journal is a well-preserved ceremonial robe of a Brahmin priest. The cloth is pure white. The last item is perhaps the strangest of all. It's a small statue or idol, presumably of one of the many deities of ancient India, made from a blue-green stone in the shape of a rather grotesque lizard-like creature. The craftsmanship is crude and gaudy, so much so that it appears fake. People begin moving among the items, looking them over, and conversing quietly. So we are asked to make either an appraise or an archaeology roll. So let's see which one he might be better at. He has a, let's see, his appraise is a 5% standard, but he has a 70% in archaeology. Yeah, I think we're going to be doing that one. So let's do a quick roll in our archaeology, and that gives us a 67. He just barely succeeds, but that is one that we did make. So if we succeed, we go to number 45. You examine the items with a trained eye. The crown and ceremonial robe are obviously authentic and typical of what you would expect. They're in great condition and would certainly fetch a good price, though they are no rarer than any other antiquity. Likewise, Professor Harris's journal seems like it would be of value to a scholar, though a few delicate cursory pages turned show that it contains personal accounts and travelogues as well as historically relevant information. This is likely a good source of information on Professor Harris himself. However, the other items present are noticeably different. The altar and clay cylinders bear a similar script and both show comparable signs of aging and wear. Given this, they are unlikely to be fabrications, but they are unlike more traditional finds from ancient India. A close inspection of the lizard idol leads you to believe it is likewise verifiably authentic, though the workmanship is strange and unnatural and clearly nothing like anything you've seen from ancient India or elsewhere. It doesn't bear any signs of work from modern tools or influence from modern styles either. Okay, definitely kind of got then Professor Woods' interest peaked in a lot of areas. So we're asked then now to go to number 81. You notice that you're not the only one looking over the items with such interest. The monk appears to be closely scrutinizing stranger items as well, and the dark-suited gentleman from earlier seems to have taken a liking to the curious idol. Apart from this, various other guests wander around the tables, occasionally fixing on one in particular. There are many guests and a fair number of bids being placed. If you'd like to bid on any of the items, now is the time. So then we're given then the option of ones we might wish to bid on. So we have bid on the clay cylinders, bid on the altar, bid on the crown, bid on the journal, bid on the ceremonial robe, bid on the strange idol. I mean, he's here for the journal, but those last items, they're definitely very, very unique. Oh, that's a tough choice. But I think Dr. Woods needs to remember the reason why he's here, and so we will bid on the journal, so we will go to number 60. We do have, if I remember, number 6. If I do remember, we do have with us $300 in cash. So that does open up some possibilities of being able to handle some of these things. So, number 6, you feel that the information in the journal is essential to your interests and you cannot help but make a bid. You place your paper with the others and hope that Mr. Warren calls your name when the amounts are compared. So we're asked then to make an appraise or credit rating roll, and if we succeed, we go one place. So let's see, appraise then, of course, was 5, but our credit rating, if I can find it real quick, our credit rating is a 60. So we have a fairly good chance of maybe being able to get this one. So we roll and we get a 48. So we do succeed. So we will go to number 100. You feel that the knowledge in these pages could very well prove essential to you, so you offer a price that is more than fair. Sure enough, Mr. Warren calls your name and presses the leather-bound tome into your eager hands. We have to reduce our credit rating now by 2, and then we go down to 81. So our credit rating is reduced by 2, which isn't all that much. So we go from a 60 down to a 58. Okay, and we go now to 81. You notice that you're not the only one looking over the items with such interest. The monk appears to be closely scrutinizing the stranger items as well as the dark-suited gentleman from earlier seemed to have taken a liking to the curious idol. So apart from these various other guests, so we're given the opportunity to actually bid on some more things. Okay, that is definitely something that'll be interesting then. I think definitely he's going to be interested in trying to go after the idol now at this point. So we'll go to 92. All right, something draws you to this curious idol, and you feel compelled to make a bid. You notice that you're not alone in this, as the monk and one of the dark-suited men both place bids in their own box. You hope that yours is high enough. And again, we're asked then to make a credit rating. And this one is extremely difficult level. Okay, so that means we need to get at 1/5 of our value. All right. And let's see what we do. So 1/5 of 58 would be an 11. So let's see how we do. 44. We do not succeed at this. Okay. So if you fail, go to 154. Though you put a sizable bid in for the idol, a truly outrageous sum is called, easily twice what you offered. Mr. Warren squints hard at the paper before recalling out the staggering price and an unfamiliar-sounding name, Banyu. Confused whispers break out as the orange-robed monk collects the statue with a look of excitement on his face. Now we go to 81. All right, and we're back then to the ability to bid on a few things. I think at this point we want to take a look at those. I think I'm going to go for the idol was the one I really wanted to get of the other ones, but let's just try to get one more thing, I think. And so we will bid on the clay cylinders. So we want to go then to number 24. Okay, and at number 24 it says, you write a reasonable bid on the pair of cylinders and place it in the box. Shortly after you do, Mr. Warren clears the box and begins checking the bids. All right, so now we need to make a hard difficulty roll. Let's see, so that is going to be half of what we have, so that's an 81. That's definitely a failure. So we need to go to number 73. Though you wish to buy the curious clay cylinder, someone else placed a higher bid, and you hear Mr. Warren announce the name Arthur Duncan and see one of the dark-suited pair approach to take the item from him. And then back to our bidding table. I think he'll make one more attempt since he's only been able to get one thing at this point, so he's going to go to try to bid on the altar, and so we'll go to 103. You decide on a fair bid for the gemstone-studded altar and submit your offering. Not long after, Mr. Warren empties the ballot box and it begins sifting through the entries for the highest bid. And again, we're asked to make a hard difficulty of our credit rating, and that is going to be a 97. It is not our night tonight. Luckily, though, at least we did get the journal, which I think for Dr. Woods is the primary thing that he needed. So we failed, so we go to number 59. Mr. Warren takes his time mulling over the names and figures before calling out the name of Dexter James. One of the dark-suited men from earlier comes forward to claim the altar, and we return now back to number 81. I think we could probably try to go through and do all of these, but I think those are the ones that were really of interest to Dr. Woods. And so at this point then, we will go on to number 16. Your business here is complete. You see the crowd staring covetously at the newly acquired items, and you spot Amelia looking smug and satisfied with a leather bag full of cash. Mr. Warren begins to clear away the tables while Officer Powell stands by the door and directs people out of the building into the ever-thickening fog. Though some seem content to stay and socialize, you feel that it would be best to go to bed for the night, and so we go to number 26. While the estate sale seems interesting, you would feel more secure with a roof over your head for the night. You pull someone out of the crowd and inquire as to where you can find a room to rent. You're directed a few blocks into town to a modestly priced hotel a few buildings down from Esbury's police station. As you enter in from the cool night air, you are greeted by the heat of a roaring fire. The small front room feels stuffy and cramped. The bulk of the space is dominated by the large service counter, behind which sits a wiry-looking wisp of a woman. She turns her eyes wide to you and asks your name, then quotes you a price that's more than fair. With the transaction now complete, you haul your thin briefcase up the stairs, unpack it, and settle into the room for the night. And we go to number 9. You wake in the morning, grateful for the rest. You rise from your bed and take in the modest surroundings that make up your room. The furnishings are sparse, a small, poor-quality dresser and a cramped and dusty writing desk tucked in the corner. Sitting atop the desk is a plate of eggs and toast, apparently set out by the hotel's owner. The walls are plain and unadorned, save for a single window that faces toward the lake. However, this view is currently blocked by the incredibly thick fog, which has taken on a pale green hue. Your vision is obscured entirely, and you cannot see into the depths of that outlandish green mist. You also notice your personal belongings placed around the room exactly as you left them the night before. And with that, we will conclude our episode 1 of Alone Against the Tide. Join me again for the next episode, probably within the next couple of days. Until then, I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Any questions, comments, or issues, if I might have messed up with something, let me know down below. Thanks for watching.